So it's a pleasure to be here today. I'm not sure how many of you listening are familiar with spotted wing Drosophila. It's a well-named little insect, as this picture shows. The spots on the wing, this is a male, and they do have the spots on the wing. It is an invasive species that first came into the continental U.S. in 2008. It was found in California and has rapidly spread throughout the entire country. It was found here in New York State in fall of 2011 and has spread since then. And besides being found in the continental U.S., it's also in the Canadian provinces to the north in the fruit-producing regions as well. So it certainly has established itself throughout North America. The biology of it, it's problematic because it only needs about 12 days per generation. Their optimal development is at 65 to 70 degrees. The adults are pretty long-lived as far as a small insect like this goes, anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. And more problematic is that the females can lay 300 to 400 eggs during their lifetime. And it's especially problematic because the eggs themselves can hatch in as little as 12 hours after they've been laid, anywhere from half a day to 3 days before we then have larvae in the fruit. So again, another slide showing those distinctive spotted wings on the males on one of its favorite foods right there, raspberry. And the big problem with spotted wing is the females have these incredibly nasty-looking ovipositors that you can actually see that they are serrated, so that they literally...
To unmute your line, press *6 or #6.
So everyone's like, well, what's the problem? You know, it's a fruit fly. And most fruit flies need decomposing or very ripe, certainly at least ripe to overripe fruit to lay their eggs. But with spotted wing Drosophila, because the female has that ovipositor, it actually will go after fruit that has not even ripened yet, that is starting to ripen. So this ripening raspberry right here, the female can come along, insert that serrated ovipositor, saw right through the skin of the druplet here, and lay its egg inside the berry. So the grower doesn't know anything is happening to his or her fruit out there, and you have people come in and go out and do you-pick raspberries or whatever, and it's a nice hot day. They come in after picking for a while, and they start to notice kind of some extra movement in their batch of raspberries. And if you look closely here, you can see there's all sorts of little white larvae crawling around. And when a customer sees this, their appetite for their raspberry pie or fresh raspberries on vanilla ice cream or the raspberry jam that they were going to make certainly goes out the window. And people have tried making jam out of raspberries that have spotted wing Drosophila in them, and all the larvae float to the top of the jam. So it's really a pretty disgusting creature, and it loves raspberries. When people go to see why their blueberries are soft and they open them up, they again see these little white larvae and they see decomposing flesh, whereas it should be a nice bright white flesh with little green seeds inside the blueberry. Or if they grow fall raspberries and they wonder why or fall strawberries, and they wonder why their strawberries are soft, 12 hours to 3 days ago, if they had come and looked at this very carefully, they would see 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 spotted wing Drosophila eggs under the skin of the strawberry plant, and that is just around one little achene or seed of the strawberry fruit itself. This was a perfect-looking strawberry, and it wound up having about 500 eggs in it in one individual berry. So when it hits hard. The other thing is that it does affect more than just the berry crops. It does like cherries very well, and then then it also will go after peaches. Tends to go after peaches that have a little bit of damage, but it will lay its eggs in peaches as well, which can also act as a way for it to increase its population. It has been found in grapes, and you can see the picture here where these are some the breathing tubes for the eggs in a grape. It tends to go after grapes that are a softer skin grape, but certainly we do have quite a grape industry in New York State. And while it does not go after all the varieties equally, it does go after some of the softer skin ones, so it's certainly problematic. In addition to fruit crops, it does go after some vegetable crops. Sun Gold tomatoes right here, which are the best tasting cherry tomato, nice and sweet. They do tend to crack a little bit. That tends to attract the spotted wing, and they will lay their eggs in cherry tomatoes. They also go after heirloom tomatoes because, again, it's a soft skin. They're able to lay their eggs quite easily, and heirloom tomatoes are also known for their proclivity to crack, and often those cracks will heal over, so people are still selling these tomatoes, but with spotted wing around, they might be selling tomatoes that then have little larvae in them. And people don't seem to like little larvae in their tomatoes any more than they do in their raspberries or blueberries. A monitoring program was put into place in 2012. Like I said, it was first found in New York State in 2011, in the fall of 2011. It's believed that it probably got blown up on Irene and or Lee. And in 2012, traps were set out. First occurrence in traps, first detection was made on Long Island on July 6th, and then it spread throughout the state so that by middle of September, every single corner, I don't know why that's doing that, every single corner of the state had fruit that was infested. Literally from Long Island to the Canadian border to Chautauqua County, people were reporting infestations in fruit. In 2013, the trap network was continued, and 4 counties in 2013 had their first trap catches in June. So Long Island, Lower Hudson Valley, and also in western New York. 19 counties had their first detection in July. 3 counties had their first detection in August. 2 counties did not find spotted wing in traps. One of them took their traps down early, but the other one, you'll note, while they did not find spotted wing in traps, they did find spotted wing larvae in fruit. So there's certainly much to be done with the trapping system. The economic impact of spotted wing in New York State is severe. The last numbers that we have are for 2012. We're still putting together numbers for 2013. But in 2012, you can see that the berry industry, the 3 major berry crops, had a value of about $15 million, and 1/3 of that, $5 million, was lost to spotted wing Drosophila, mainly in raspberries. On my own farm in 2012, I lost about 40% of my blueberry crop, and I lost about 20% of my raspberry crop. The only reason I did not lose 100% of my raspberry crop was because once I figured out what was going on, I literally had to spray every 3 days to get a crop out of my raspberry tunnel. I think, though, that there's a lot of impacts beyond dollars that people need to think about. And with fall raspberries, I'm not sure how many of you know how fall raspberries grow, but they're producing fruit and flowers at the same time. So the end of this cane could very easily have ripening fruit that needs to be protected from spotted wing at the same time that there's open flowers that bees are visiting. And no farmer wants to be spraying anything when there's bees out there. We recognize that our livelihood depends on bees and other beneficial insects doing pollination for us. But because of the fact that there's both ripe fruit and open flowers at the same time, having to spray for this insect is extremely problematic because we don't want to be hurting the beneficial insects. There's also, people need to be thinking about consumer access. You know, with the increase in obesity in this country, the last thing we want to be doing is decreasing the supply of fresh fruits and vegetables, one of the best foods out there that people can be consuming. And growers have been pulling out plantings, or they are not putting in new plantings that they had originally planned to do because of this insect. A lot of raspberry plantings have been pulled out over the last couple years. Some people are on hold with putting in more blueberries, and you know, blueberries are a crop, it takes about 10 years to reach maturity. So people that have put in blueberry plantings in the last few years are now wondering if they're going to be able to actually get crops off those new plantings. We're also looking at basically 25 years of research investment almost going down the drain. Cornell has done a really great job over the years being very innovative and looking at different ways to give New York growers a competitive advantage with the berry crops. One of those is protected culture in high tunnels. This is my raspberry tunnel a couple years ago, and you know, this huge, beautiful crop that I can harvest starting in about the middle of July and be harvesting through the end of October. So there's been a huge amount of work done as far as helping people get crops to market early in the season, later in the season, and getting people to have something that they can be producing much more than just a 3-week season for strawberries, which is kind of, or a 3-week season for summer raspberries. And as a person that sells my entire crop locally, I'm really, really concerned about what this will do to the whole buy local movement. The spotted wing may go predominantly after berries, but I mentioned they do go after heirloom tomatoes. But more importantly, you know, if a customer comes to my booth at the Troy Waterfront Farmers Market and buys some raspberries and gets them home and finds all these little white crawly things inside them, they're probably never going to come back and buy anything from me again. They probably aren't going to buy zucchini from me or cut flowers, and it may totally turn them off from going to a farmer's market, period. You know, if they have that experience a couple of times from different vendors in a market, it is just going to entirely turn them off from buying locally when they can go to the supermarket and buy things that they're not finding little white crawly critters in. And also, I think economic development is a really big issue. This is the berry patch in Stephentown. 18 years ago, this is what I bought. It was an abandoned old cornfield with an old dilapidated building that the previous owners had not kept up very well. This was just plans for a 2-car garage that they had made a little farm market out of. And this is what the berry patch looks like now. We've got about a $100,000 investment in protected culture in here. And I recently filled out my workers' comp payroll report. And last year we had 16 employees. Everyone from the twin high school girls that are hoping to go to Princeton this fall when they start college, to the college kid that wants to be the absolute best history teacher that the state of New York has ever seen, to the people that have been laid off from their teaching jobs and now do substitute teaching and fill in with their income by working at the berry patch, or the local woman who works at the berry patch because her husband's a contractor and there's not a lot going on in the contracting world right now, as well as all the investment that we have made. Like I said, we've got about $100,000 in protected culture here at the berry patch. And we buy all our equipment, all our supplies locally in what is a very, very rural area that doesn't have a lot of employment opportunities or a lot of investment opportunities. So, you know, New York State has a really bright future for agriculture in upstate New York, but we need to be able to continue agriculture. And when we have invasive species like this coming in, and doing as much damage as spotted wing does, that becomes a pretty hard sell to encourage people to invest in certain agricultural crops. So I'm not over-exaggerating that spotted wing Drosophila can really make or break this industry. This is what my blueberries look like when we're harvesting them in July, and I want to be able to have a harvest like this in the future and not be talking about, well, when we used to grow blueberries, but now we can't because we can't control spotted wing Drosophila. Last year, I was pretty despondent at this time because the future was so bleak. I do want to say that this year I am cautiously optimistic. The New York State Berry Growers Association was successful in getting a legislative allocation last year to initiate a number of different research projects, and so I'm just going to briefly go through some of the progress that we've been able to accomplish with some of that funding. And that is that by just adding sugar to some of the reduced risk pesticides, we've found them to be far more effective at controlling spotted wing Drosophila, and since they are reduced risk insecticides, they tend to be pretty easy on the beneficial insects. So materials that were kind of marginal as far as effectiveness before, we're finding are more effective just by adding sugar to the application. We also got funding from the New York State Farm Viability Institute to look at putting in a prototype fixed sprayer system in for tunnels. We put them in 2 research tunnels and then 1 commercial tunnel, and we were able to achieve commercially acceptable control in the commercial tunnel with basically no exposure to the applicator versus somebody having to go through there with a backpack sprayer on their back. It was more efficient time-wise. It's a very easy system to use. And to me, most importantly, it's got wonderful protection of the beneficial insects because in the whole tunnel, it takes 10 minutes or less to do the application. And so all the applications can be done at dusk after the bees have left the tunnel or gone into their nest for the evening. So, you know, more work needs to be done on it, but it's very, very promising. We're also always thinking about organic growers because organic growers are at an extreme disadvantage with this pest. There's only 1 material that is effective against spotted wing, but you can only use 2 consecutive applications of it, and then you have to rotate to a different insecticide. And if you're an organic grower, there are no alternative effective insecticides. So you have to rotate because that's what the label says. But you're rotating to an ineffective material. So we're looking at what can be done so that they don't have to be sprayed, period. And by putting out some insect netting and excluding the insects, there is promise with that. It worked better than the organically approved insecticides in both blueberries and raspberries. It obviously needs to be adapted to a field scale type of situation. But there is some promise with that area of research as well. The trapping is a work in progress. Last year's work demonstrated that both a fermenting bait, which is flour, water, and sugar that does ferment in the process inside the traps, as well as a synthetic lure, both of them were more effective at catching spotted wing Drosophila adults and therefore provided earlier detection than the standard bait that was used before, that you could have a full-blown outbreak of larvae in your fruit already before you would catch any flies in the trap. The other thing that's very promising is that work done here in New York and in other states showed that a new material called Cyazapyr, a trade name of Extrel, is an effective reduced-risk insecticide that we hope will be added for spotted wing Drosophila management. And most importantly, it has a different mode of action, and that is going to be absolutely critical for controlling an insect that we can have 8 generations per year. We also found that another invasive species is helping in the invasive spotted wing. Bush honeysuckle and wild blackberry seem to be really important early to mid-season alternative hosts for spotted wing. And so there's some feelings that the spotted wing may be building up in populations in the honeysuckle and wild blackberry in the hedgerows, in the woods, et cetera, that then contribute to high populations that then go after the agricultural crops later in the season. This project I'm super excited about. I can hardly contain it. I'm so excited. There is a Drosophila immunologist at Cornell named Nicholas Bouchon, and we used some of the legislative money this year for him to go through. He's got a whole category of bacterial and fungal species that are effective against common fruit fly as far as being pathogens that will kill the fruit fly. And so he's done some initial screening and feels that some of the pathogens that are effective against common fruit fly may be effective against spotted wing Drosophila. And so my understanding is that we'll actually be getting some of the invasive species funding from last year to help Nicholas expand this project and see which pathogens are most effective, and then continue that in future years and figure out a way to get these pathogens out into agricultural crops. So biocontrol is going to be the way that we control this pest in the future on a long-term basis. So I'm super, super excited about this project. So we've got a lot of work going on, and we do have requests for 2014 so that we can continue this great work. I mean, I think it's pretty amazing how much we have been able to accomplish in just the first year. The berry growers have gone to the legislature again in 2014, and we've put in another request for a legislative allocation. And we were quite well received by the people that we visited with, so we are very hopeful that that will come through for this funding cycle as well. We are asking for some more funding from the Invasive Species Fund this year, and what we would like to do with that is we are requesting $60,000 a year for 3 years in a row to enable us to conduct some molecular level work to try to figure out just where is spotted wing originating from in New York each year. We don't even know yet if it is overwintering in New York. It's found in the cold regions of Japan, so there's certainly indications that it can overwinter in New York, but are the populations starting at a high level here in New York, or are they migrating in from the southeastern and mid-Atlantic areas? So this is a really critical piece of information that we're still lacking, and we need some more boots on the ground and specialized expertise to be able to decide this. So we're hoping we can get some funding from the Invasive Species Fund to add this to our list of progress that we're making. And then another request that we have is that our friends in DEC conduct a fast-track review of thiazapyr, the XRL, so that growers can know before the growing season starts if there will be a label for this material in New York State. It has received its federal label, and it would be very, very, very helpful for growers to have another material in New York since it does have a different mode of action. In Michigan, after just one season of use, they've been seeing reduced sensitivity of spotted wing to the synthetic pyrethroids. With an insect that has so many generations per year, we've got to have as many different modes of action as possible to throw at these critters. So we're really hoping that XRL can get a fast track at DEC. And I just want to conclude with the fact that we've made really great progress this year, and I think it's because we have a really great team working on this, and it truly is a team approach. Greg Loeb, Julie Carroll, Nicholas Bouchon, Kathy Heidenreich, Laura McDermott, not only have they provided slides for me for this presentation, but we work together as a team, putting together our request for the legislature. The Berry Growers Association has been in the forefront with coming up with funding for this, but if we didn't have great people working on it, we wouldn't be very successful in making the progress that we have. So I think that we really, the team that that we have formed and the approach that we've taken, I think has potential to be a model for other invasive species that are causing problems for agricultural crops. And it's just, you know, in 1 year, I think we've made great progress, and we're just really hopeful that we can continue this so that we can continue to have a viable and productive and profitable small fruits industry in New York State. So with that, I would be happy to take any questions.